Hello, good afternoon everyone, and welcome to another Art for All group with St Christopher's. I'm in a slightly different location in my flat today. I'm sitting on my living room floor, and not because I've decided to give up chairs, it's because of the art project that I'd like to talk to you about today. And I think we've talked a lot about lockdown and what we might have all been doing to get through lockdown, and we might all have been looking outside at the lovely weather. Now lots of us are able to go out and enjoy the weather, and enjoy as much exercise as we want. Some of us are still staying inside. But I suppose it's made me think about how we view the outside and coming into contact with other people, how we view the natural world, and also how we view our houses as well, and how we view the very thing that allows us to look out into the world, so our windows. And over the weekend, I also watched one of my favourite films, A Room with a View. And some of you might have seen that film, some of you might have read the book by E.M. Foster. And the book starts off with two women who have gone to Florence to learn more about Italian Renaissance art in the sort of late 19th century, early 20th century. And it's about how the story moves on from there, but it all starts off with they get to Florence and they're meant to have a room with a view, and they don't have a room with a view, and it all kicks off from there. And there's there's lots of discussion of the British class system, lots of discussion about romance and finding who you are. But I think one of the things that really stuck with me from the film and from the book is somebody saying that he doesn't care about the view outside his window. And he says, my view is within. Here is where the sun shines. Here is where the birds sing. And sort of cuts his chest. And another character, his son, says, the best view is the sky above our heads. So maybe they slightly push away from man-made things and things that are just about a lovely view. But I suppose maybe I was thinking about a bit of a compromise between the two points of view, and thinking about how maybe us learning from looking at a view, maybe what it can teach us about our own inner view of ourselves. Maybe that's a bit much to be getting into in an art session. But I suppose I looked at some artists who have drawn pictures from their studios or from their houses, and I thought I'd share some of them with you, and then I'd go into the art exercise and just give you some tips about how, if you want to draw either your room or the view from your room or the room with a view, how you can get started on that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, very exciting, and I am going to then there we go. Hopefully that's worked. So this is a vintage cover of A Room with a View, and you can see the view is of Florence, of the Cathedral of Florence, with a very famous dome built in the Renaissance, and so this gravity-defying dome. And that's what these two women going to Florence were hoping to see, but I think instead they got an alleyway. But you have to read the book or watch the film to find out what happens next. So I looked at other artists who are also have drawn what they've seen from their windows. And the first one that came to mind for me was Lucian Freud. And this is drawn in Paddington, before Paddington was a bit more salubrious. And this is a wasteland at the back of his studio. And he painted this. He painted a series of factories and wastelands after the death of his father. And this was a way of him just looking outside, looking at just studying in the way that he would normally really intently study portraits or drawing from life, from people from life. This is another study of just him processing what was going on. The next image is a very, very different image. It's by Pierre Bonnard, and this was the room where he used to have breakfast every day, and you can see this little dog in the corner, really different colours. You can see the window, so you can see part of the room that we're in with Lucian Freud's. It was just the view. It was almost like a photograph, like we weren't in a room, but with this we're definitely in a room, and the door actually comes in towards us, and breakfast is almost outside on the balcony, and the blocky colours of the houses in the distance, there is perspective, but it's still kind of brought forward, and the pattern on the tablecloth replicates the pattern outside, and the outside comes inside and the inside goes outside, but you still have this really clear demarcation of what is in and what is out. And it's quite a nice place to have breakfast, I have to say. This was by Spencer Frederick Gore. He was staying in, I think, the late 19th century. I might be getting that wrong, so don't quote me. He was staying with his friend, another painter called Walter Sickert, and this is up in Hampstead, so very nice. And you can see there's a housemaid scrubbing the steps, and it's just kind of a scene of early morning in Edwardian London. You can see there's some kind of cart there, maybe the milk van, and yeah, he liked this area so much that, having stayed with his friend, he actually ended up moving there. So this picture of the view is actually his love letter to the area, and maybe he looked back at this and reminded himself, yes, I do want to move here. This is why I moved here. The next image is by, make sure I pronounce this right, is by Utagawa Hiroshige, and it's from the 16th century in Japan, and this is part of his series 100 Views of Edo, and Edo was the city that was established before it became known as Tokyo. This is actually, well, a little bit racy, this is actually set in a brothel, but it's got a lovely view of Mount Fuji, and there's a cat looking over the rice fields, and again we've got this the window is included, so we're definitely in this room, and the different things around the combs on the floor that she would have been putting in her hair, and some fabric on the side and a bowl, show that this is an inhabited room and people are moving around within it, and we are in that scene in the room. Whereas with the Lucian Freud picture, we could have been standing maybe on some scaffolding outside. Here we're in a room, and you can't really see if there's glass or not. Maybe there wasn't glass, maybe it's just paper screens. So where with Spencer Frederick Gore's image we're looking through glass, here we're not looking through glass, we're looking through a wooden screen and then just on to the air. The next one is by Andrew Wyeth, and here we have this, it's almost like a photograph, this lace curtain is being blown in, and the title of this is The Wind from the Sea, and it's really, really delicate, very, very muted colours, so maybe colours similar to the Lucian Freud, but again we have this window that frames the view within, so we're looking at a frame within a frame. And this, I'm sure a lot of you will recognise this is done by Vincent van Gogh, and this is actually the view from the window of the asylum where he was receiving treatment after a severe psychological episode, and he hadn't painted in 6 weeks, and one day he got up and painted this and said that actually it was his work that had a big impact on his mood at that point. So yeah, early in the morning, looking out at the movement in the fields. And again, I suppose, unless you knew that he'd done this in an asylum, there's no clue in the picture that he's in an asylum, or that he's in any kind of room. He could be standing in the field, but it is a view from his room. And that's all the images I have to share, so I'll stop sharing there. So now I'm briefly going to show you a how-to of how to sketch your own window, and I am going to, this is the main reason I'm sitting down here, because I'm going to be looking up out at my window, and being a guinea pig. So I will show you the planner. So first of all, I'm going to want to maybe decide, do you want to, you're going to draw a frame within your paper. Decide, because this will help you get scale, and you can decide what you're keeping in, and you can see actually, is what I'm putting in, does that fit with the scale of the rest of the items in relation to this? So I've done this here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch in the bottom of my window, and I'm going to include my window. So my window is rather helpfully a bit curved, so I've got an extra challenge. And then I've also got shutters on my window. So I'm going to first of all block in the larger shapes. So I'll show you in just a moment. I'm going to block in the larger shapes. And try and get the scale right. I think I might make my frame slightly wider. I tend to do this. I'm not very good at actually adjusting, or actually getting the frame right first time. Do you know what? That's okay. That's why there's rubbers on the ends of pencils. So if you have to do the same, just go with it. This is just an exercise, and it's not being marked. So I'm going to that, and then the window curves a bit. I'm going to do that, take it right up to the edge. I've got that there. Okay, so now I have this. So very rough, and I'm just doing this really quickly, so I'm not going for huge degrees of accuracy. I'm just blocking this in, and yeah, so then I've done the foreground. So I'm going from the nearby objects to the further away objects. There we go. Go from nearby objects to the further away objects. So I've done the foreground. I might put in my plant pot because that's there and deserves a bit of recognition. The geranium is looking very sorry for itself because I was slightly aggressive in pruning it. So might not show you. Well, it might get into the shop, but I feel a bit bad about that. As though I was a bit cruel to my geranium. If anybody has any tips on how to revive a very aggressively pruned geranium, I would very much like to hear them. So yeah, just sketching geranium, and then a couple of little pots just here. I'm just going to draw those in, just not make shade it in, just so I know it's there. Cutting my window ledge, and then so we've got this now. I'm going to add in my little window openy thing, the latch. Not sure if I'm getting the right words. And then I'm going to, and you might want to just check something here. So it can often be yeah, just checking this. So you might end up working from the edges of the pictures I've done, so maybe from bottom to top. You might end up working from top to bottom. Sometimes it can be really helpful to draw the sky first. So that's the lightest tonally, and then you can get darker and darker, rather than starting off with the darkest thing and going to the lightest thing, because that might, if you're using a pencil, might just involve lots of rubbing out. You might actually want to do this on black paper and using chalk and just pick out highlights. That can actually be really effective and make something really interesting. So now my framing of the window makes drawing the tree much easier because I can see where it's meant to go. And there's nice light on it at the moment. And it's moving in the breeze. And I'm going to try and demarcate a little bit where I can see that there are different trees. Just for the purposes of this video, I'll draw small branches where I see them. And I'm also going to do on the other side of my picture, or the other side of my window rather, I have shutters, so I'm going to show those. And I'm going to carry on with this, and using whatever lines I can kind of see. So I'm absolutely not drawing every single leaf of the tree. I'm just using a rough outline, and I'll go back in later on. I'll show you with a little bit of this. I'll go back in later on and sometimes highlight tree trunks just by doing a bit of darken back. So we have the start of a tree and the shutters, and we have the sky where there are no clouds. So I'm just going to do kind of little detailed bits and pieces, and just filling in, doing some shading, very rough kind of scribbly shading because we're in the tree. Just shading through and highlighting the bits that I want to highlight. There's a shadow on this side of the tree, shadow here. So the contrasting shadow behind the tree might bring other trees, other parts of the tree into view. Yeah. So I think I might leave it there for the moment, but yeah, let's do. Yeah. Quick shading here because it's the casing of my window is quite dark in contrast with the beautiful light sky outside, even though the casing around my window is white. With the light outside, it just becomes that much darker. So I'm just adjusting the tones. So again, this is why you might want to work from light to dark. It can just make things a bit easier. So yeah, we have the start. So this is just early sketches. I would probably go back in with a slightly finer pencil, maybe a less, I think at the moment I'm using a 4B. I might go back in with a slightly less melty pencil. I will also show you my window. Here we go. So, here we go. It's not exactly the same, but on a par. So that is that's my start on a window and start of my room with a view. So I hope that you're able to have a go at this, or to just enjoy your room with a view, or even get outside and look back at your room. draw it from all different angles. Thank you very much for joining today, and I look forward to hearing from you in the future. Please get in contact with any feedback that you might have, and the email address that you can contact the team on is wellbeingonline, it's all one word, at St Christopher's, that's all one word, .org.uk. And if you want to see any other groups that are being put on by the St Christopher's team, if you just go to the St Christopher's website and look for wellbeing, and you'll find a timetable. Thank you very much for joining, and I hope you have a restful week. All the best. Goodbye.